She didn't look like someone who belonged there. That's what the showroom staff decided the moment she walked in. Jeans, a soft white t-shirt, no makeup, no diamonds. Just Luna. 35, quietly radiant, her brown ponytail swaying slightly, as she stepped through the polished glass doors of Boston Luxury Motors. The air inside was crisp, scented with leather and ego. Rows of gleaming machines, Ferrari, Bentley, Aston Martin, rested under showroom lights like gods on pedestals. And then there was Luna. A contrast so stark it made heads turn. The man behind the front desk didn't greet her. He judged. James, the sales manager, leaned against a $300,000 coupe like he owned it, smirked, and exchanged a look with one of his guys. "I think you're in the wrong place," he said, not unkindly, but not kindly either. His voice dripped with superiority. "These vehicles start at $300,000, laughter. Not from Luna, but from two younger salesmen nearby who didn't even try to hide it. Other customers turned to see what was so funny. Luna just stood there, shoulders back, eyes focused, chin lifted slightly like she didn't hear them. But she heard everything. She wasn't there to impress anyone. She wasn't there to prove anything either. She had come for one reason: to find a gift. A very special one. For her sister, Caroline, who had just won her battle with breast cancer. Caroline had always dreamed of a luxury car. Luna wanted to make that dream real, but James wasn't done. He motioned toward the door, dismissively. "Our used lot's 3 blocks east. Might be more your speed." Her cheeks flushed, not with shame, but with the heat of rising anger. Still, she said nothing. She could have said 100 things, could have pulled out a card, could have mentioned her last name, but she didn't. Because this wasn't the first time someone looked at her and saw less. Instead, she turned, slowly walked out in silence. Behind her, James muttered something under his breath. Something about people not knowing their place. As the glass door closed behind her, Luna reached into her back pocket and pulled out her phone. Her hands were calm, her expression unreadable. But if you'd been close enough, you'd have seen the small curve forming at the corner of her lips. Not quite a smile, more like a signal. Because Luna wasn't just anybody, she was Luna, the founder of one of the most respected children's foundations in the country. A woman who had spent the last decade changing lives, funding therapies, building schools, and doing it all without ever chasing spotlight or status. And she wasn't married to just anyone either. While James was laughing her out the door, a call was being made. A plan was being set in motion, and the next time Luna Collins stepped through those showroom doors, no one would be laughing. They'd be silent. They'd be watching. Because the next time, she wouldn't come alone. She'd bring a message wrapped in a 1.2 million lesson, and it would arrive in a Rolls-Royce. They had no idea who she was, and that was exactly how Luna preferred it. The morning after she was laughed out of Boston Luxury Motors, Luna sat in the sun-drenched breakfast nook of her home, barefoot, a cup of black coffee warming her fingers, the memory of yesterday still stinging beneath her skin. The humiliation hadn't come from the rejection itself. She could buy that entire dealership 10 times over if she wanted. No, what hurt was the ease with which they dismissed her, as if she were invisible, as if kindness was reserved for the polished, the branded, the expected. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Henry appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a crisp, white shirt and tailored slacks. 40 years old and built from quiet genius, Henry had long since learned that real power never had to announce itself. But right now, all that brilliance faded at the sight of Luna's furrowed brow. He didn't speak. He just sat beside her, resting a warm palm over her hand. "Talk to me," he said gently. She told him everything. The way James, the sales manager, had cut her off mid-sentence. The way he'd looked at her sneakers, as if they disqualified her from breathing the same air as the 6-figure vehicles on display. The performative charm he reserved for wealthier-looking clients, and the condescension he'd used on her. "I didn't go in there trying to prove anything," she said. "I just wanted to get a gift for Caroline. She's been through so much. Beating cancer, she deserves something beautiful. That azure coupe, it reminded me of her. Sleek, strong, unapologetic. Henry nodded, silent. He knew Caroline's battle had shaken Luna more than she admitted. Her sister was the one person who never cared about Luna's money or status, only about the woman she had always been. The little girl who grew up in a 2-bedroom house outside Providence, who built her own future with books, not bloodlines. She wanted a luxury car since we were kids, Luna continued. She said one day she'd pull up to her chemo appointments in something so loud it would drown out the fear. That car was going to be my gift to her, a celebration of survival. Henry exhaled slowly. You could have told James who you are. Luna smiled, but there was no humor in it. And what would that prove? That he should only be polite when it benefits him. I don't want him to respect me. I want him to learn to respect people. She stood, walked to the window, and looked out. Over the quiet estate. It didn't scream wealth, though it easily could have. That was the point. They had built this life deliberately, unflashy, centered around values that couldn't be worn or driven. Her name wasn't just Luna. It was Luna Whitaker, founder of the Collins Foundation for Children with Disabilities, a nationwide non-profit that had raised over $50 million for adaptive education, physical therapy programs, and specialized mobility devices. Before she married Henry, she'd spent a decade in special needs classrooms, getting on the floor with children, wiping tears, and learning how society overlooks those who don't fit. Her wealth hadn't come from inheritance, it had come from impact. And still, she got laughed out of a car dealership because she wore sneakers instead of stilettos. Henry stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. So what do you want to do? Part of me wants to forget it, she admitted. Buy Caroline something else, let it go. But another part of me keeps thinking about that young woman, Mia. She looked barely 18. She tried. She saw me, he kissed her temple. That's all it takes sometimes. I don't want revenge, she said quietly. I want transformation. I want them to see, not just me, but every person they dismiss. I want to walk in that place and show them that Grace can wear jeans and still carry $1 million bank account. Henry was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I think I have an idea. He walked toward his desk and picked up his phone. Luna narrowed her eyes. No dealership takeovers. No firing sprees. He grinned. Relax. This isn't some billionaire tantrum. Good. Because I don't want to make them feel small, she said. I want them to feel the weight of what they missed. Henry looked at her, and in that moment, something clicked. They didn't need to bring war. They needed to bring a mirror. A Rolls-Royce Phantom, custom-built in midnight blue, was already parked in their garage. It wasn't flashy. It was flawless. That would be the vehicle. Henry would arrive alone, chauffeured, dressed in a suit that whispered rather than shouted. And he wouldn't ask to be treated differently. He'd just let the dealership show who they really were, until the moment the truth dropped like glass, on concrete. We won't tell them anything, Luna said. Let them treat you like royalty, and then let them realize who I am. He nodded. Consider it done. As the plan fell into place, Luna felt a strange calm settle in her chest. Not triumph, not anticipation, just peace. She didn't need an apology. She needed a reminder, for them, for others, for anyone watching, that kindness isn't currency. And that judgment based on appearances, it's the fastest way to miss out on extraordinary people. And tomorrow, they would learn, not through force, not through fury, but through a revelation, the kind that pulls up without warning, the kind that wears silence like armor, the kind that changes everything. The morning light hit the glass facade of Boston Luxury Motors like a spotlight on a stage no one realized was about to host the biggest scene of its life. Inside, the air buzzed with routine. Freshly detailed Bentleys lined up just so. Staff, reviewing numbers from the day before. James straightening his signature blue tie with the smug energy of a man who thought he had the world figured out. He'd already retold the story 3 times over coffee. The delusional woman in sneakers, who'd wandered in asking about a $285,000 coupe. Didn't even blink when I said the price, he said, chuckling, like she was walking through a mall. His audience, 2 junior salesmen, laughed on cue. And why wouldn't they? James was their model, their blueprint for success. He moved like a man who had earned his position with cut-glass charm and ruthless efficiency. The only one not laughing was Mia. The youngest member of the team, she lingered by the front desk, quietly adjusting brochures. She hadn't forgotten Luna, or how James had spoken to her. But all of that, every arrogant word, every smug smirk, froze in time the moment the sound hit the showroom. A low, thunderous purr, not just any engine. It was a voice in metal, a whisper of power. Outside, through floor-to-ceiling windows, a vehicle glided to a halt, so smooth it seemed to float, midnight blue, impossibly sleek. A Rolls-Royce Phantom, but not a model they'd seen before. This one was custom-built, with detailing so fine even the sunlight danced differently across its surface. Inside, the world went silent. James's heart jumped in his chest. Theodore, the dealership owner, stepped out of his office. His eyes scanned the front entrance. Even he looked impressed. "That's not standard issue," he murmured. The rear door opened with the precision of choreography. A gloved chauffeur stepped out, circled to the passenger side, and opened the door with practiced reverence. From the car emerged a man who didn't walk. He arrived, Henry. Impeccably dressed in a dark suit cut so well it looked sculpted. His salt-and-pepper hair was styled with just enough edge to say he wasn't here to play games, and his gaze? It moved like a scalpel, assessing, calculating, in total control. James adjusted his tie and practically leapt toward him. "Good! Morning, sir. Welcome to Boston Luxury Motors. I'm James Thompson, sales manager. An absolute pleasure to have you." Henry gave a small, polite nod. His smile was cool, measured. "Thank you. We'd be honored to assist you today." "May I ask what brings you in?" James's tone was syrupy smooth, his posture perfect. Behind him, Mia watched, arms crossed, brow raised. She knew something was coming. She just didn't know what. "I'm looking for a specific model," Henry said. "The Azure Coupe, midnight blue." James's grin stretched wider. "An excellent choice. Only 15 produced this year. Fortunately, we have one on site." "I know," Henry said, voice like glass. "My wife saw it yesterday. She expressed interest in purchasing it." James blinked. His brain began to spin. "Your wife?" Henry nodded. "Luna." James's expression shifted, slightly at first. Then the color drained from his face. I don't think I—" "You do," Henry interrupted calmly. "Jeans, white t-shirt, sneakers. You told her she might be more comfortable shopping. The used lot." Across the room, heads began to turn. Sales staff paused mid-step. Even Theodore looked frozen. Mia's mouth parted slightly. The moment was here, and it was happening fast. Mr. Collins, there must be a misunderstanding," James stammered. We welcome all clients, always." Henry raised an eyebrow. "Is that what yesterday was?" James looked around for support but found none. The silence in the room had become suffocating. Theodore stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Mr. Collins." "Henry Collins, yes?" Henry turned to him. "You must be Theodore." Yes, sir. Welcome." "I do recall briefly seeing your wife here yesterday, though I wasn't involved directly. I'm truly sorry if—" "She wasn't asking for sympathy," Henry said. "She was asking to see a car, and what she received was a lesson in assumptions, prejudice, arrogance." James opened his mouth but couldn't find words. Every syllable got caught in his throat. Henry's tone remained steady, controlled. But behind it was a warning. This wasn't anger. It was disappointment, and somehow that was worse. "My wife founded the Collins Foundation for Children with Disabilities," Henry said, letting the weight of that fact settle over the room. "She's helped thousands of families access education and mobility resources. She dresses simply because she believes dignity isn't something you perform. It's something you live." He looked directly at James. "And you tried to shrink her value to her outfit." By now, Mia had stepped forward. "She was kind," she said quietly. "Polite. She asked about the Azure. You told her it was appointment." But I saw you let another couple into the vehicle 5 minutes later. James turned to her, shocked. Mia! I don't lie, she said, her voice stronger now. Henry nodded. Then, with one graceful movement, he turned away from... James, Mia, he said, would you handle the sale of the Azure Coupe and any further purchases we make today? She froze. Me. Yes. My wife was treated with dignity by one person in this entire building, and that counts for more than you know. Mia blinked, back sudden emotion. I'd be honored, Henry turned to Theodore. As for the rest of the deal, we're also looking to replace our corporate fleet. 7 vehicles. I was considering doing it all here, but now... He let that linger. I hope you'll consider staff retraining. Bias is expensive. Theodore looked physically ill. Yes, absolutely. We'll bring in consultants immediately. Henry gave a final nod. Let's move forward. As Mia led him to the Azure, James remained standing, motionless, colorless, humiliated. And just outside the window, unnoticed, Luna sat in the back seat of the Rolls-Royce. She didn't need to step inside. She already knew the lesson had been delivered. Sometimes, power doesn't need to speak. It just arrives and lets the silence do the work. 1 month later, James Thompson stood under the vaulted ceiling of the Grand Boston Hotel. But he wasn't wearing his signature blue tie. Tonight, he wore a plain black polo, khaki pants, and a laminated name tag that read, Event Volunteer. In his hands, a clipboard. At his side, a boy named Thomas, in a wheelchair, who was enthusiastically explaining the rules of adaptive basketball. You gotta keep the ball low, or they'll steal it from you. Like this, Thomas said, demonstrating. A crossbody pass that was surprisingly sharp for a 9-year-old. James smiled, genuinely. You've got better form than I ever did. Yeah, Thomas grinned. Maggie says that too. James chuckled softly, the name still catching him off guard. Luna. Or, as he'd learned later, Maggie was her nickname growing up. The kind of woman who could walk into your life unnoticed, and then change it completely without ever raising her voice. When she'd walked out of the dealership that day, James hadn't realized he was standing on the edge of a fall that would reshape his life. His punishment hadn't come with a pink slip or a lawsuit. It had come with an invitation to volunteer, to serve, to witness. And tonight, surrounded by hundreds of children with disabilities, their families, and donors from across the country, James was beginning to understand that the cost of his arrogance wasn't just professional embarrassment. It had been the people he never bothered to see. The Collins Foundation's annual benefit gala had transformed the grand ballroom into a celebration of resilience. Colorful banners detailed stories of children who'd taken their first steps with donated prosthetics, learned to speak thanks to adaptive tech, or discovered sports that made them feel limitless. It was not just an event. It was revelation, and James, he had started as a reluctant participant, just another executive checking a box to salvage his image. But every week, every shift at the foundation changed him. He'd held a speech board for a non-verbal child who beamed at every choice he made. He'd helped build basketball ramps and modified bikes. He'd laughed. He'd cried. And somewhere along the way, something inside him cracked open. That something was humility. From across the room, Luna spotted him beside Thomas and began walking over. She wore a modest blue dress, her hair tied back simply. Even now that James knew who she really was, she still radiated the same quiet dignity that had once been mistaken for unimportance. Thomas is teaching me how to shoot properly, James said as she arrived. He's a tough coach, Luna smiled. No tolerance for sloppiness. Apparently I've got terrible form, Thomas beamed. He's learning. Luna nodded, then turned to James. Her expression was kind, but unflinching. How are you finding the experience? James paused, choosing his words carefully. Humbling, necessary. She studied him for a beat and then said, I know you've apologized through the foundation, but I'd like to hear it from you. He took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Luna, for the way I treated you, for the way I've treated others. I judged people by the wrong metrics for a long time, and there's no excuse for that. You deserved better. Everyone does. She nodded. There isn't an excuse, but there is growth. The question is, have you really changed, or are you just embarrassed? James didn't flinch. I've changed. I'm changing. I won't pretend 1 month erases a career, built on ego. But I see things now, things I refused to see before. Luna looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, not a wide grin, just a quiet gesture of understanding. Thomas seems to like you. That's usually a good sign. Thanks, James said, exhaling, his shoulders visibly relaxing. Just then, Henry appeared, dressed in his usual quiet sharpness. Charcoal blazer, open-collared shirt, calm presence like gravity in human form. He slipped beside Luna, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and gave James a brief nod. Mr. Collins, James greeted, more reverence than fear now. I hear you've become quite involved with the adaptive sports program, Henry said. Yes, sir. I've actually signed on to continue volunteering, even after the formal hours are done. And I've been helping Theodore overhaul our customer protocols. No more qualifying people by appearance. Henry looked impressed. That's a good start. There was a pause. Then Henry added casually. That corporate fleet I mentioned, we're still in the market. James blinked. You are? Yes, Henry said. And Mia, spoke highly of how you've mentored her recently. She says you've helped her find her voice. James's mouth parted slightly. She's got talent and integrity. She just needed someone to believe in that. Then perhaps, Henry said, you should handle the transaction, if you're ready. James stared at him for a moment, unsure if he'd heard right. I would be honored. Don't thank me, Henry said. Thank my wife. She's the reason this deal still exists. Across the room, a child began singing into a mic. Off-key, loud, perfect. The entire ballroom laughed and applauded as the child bowed dramatically. James looked around, really looked at everything this night meant, and realized something. He hadn't just almost lost a deal, he'd almost lost a chance to evolve. Later that evening, as the event wound down, James stood beside Thomas for a photo session. He helped him back into his wheelchair and adjusted the lap belt gently. You know what, Mr. James? Thomas grinned. You're pretty cool for a grown-up. James laughed. Coming from you, kid, that's the best compliment I've ever gotten. He meant it. Because for the first time in a long time, James Thompson wasn't performing for approval or chasing prestige. He was present, real, and changed. The ballroom was quieter now. The music had softened, the spotlights dimmed, and most of the guests had begun to slip out into the cool Boston night. But James remained, standing near the far wall with a paper cup of lukewarm coffee watching. The clean-up crew disassemble what had just hours ago been a masterpiece of joy and celebration. Across the room, Luna and Henry were talking with donors, their body language effortless, sincere. They weren't networking, they were connecting, no power plays, no performance. Just people who cared about the children they served. And for once, James wasn't watching from the outside in envy. He was watching with understanding. In just 30 days, he had gone from being the gatekeeper of exclusivity to the student of empathy. His sales quotas, designer shoes, and showroom polish, all the markers of status he had clung to, felt strangely hollow now. Earlier that evening, he'd watched Thomas sink a 3-point shot in front of the crowd. The cheers had been deafening, but the pride in the boy's eyes. That had hit different. It wasn't about pity. It was about recognition, about a moment where he wasn't a child in a wheelchair. He was an athlete, a star, a force. James had been the one to wheel him off the court after. You're pretty cool for a grown-up, Thomas had said, flashing that gap-toothed grin. It echoed louder than any sales commission James had ever earned. He sipped his coffee and stared out at the room where his perspective had changed. He thought back to the showroom, the laughter, the judgment, the blind dismissal. He thought about how he'd told Luna she was wasting his time. How he'd measured her worth by what she wore instead of who she was. And how, without raising her voice or name-dropping a single connection, she had turned his entire worldview inside out. Because real wealth doesn't show up in a car. It shows up in character. In who you are, when no one's watching. In how you treat people you think can't offer you anything. And in how you respond when the mirror is finally held up. James wasn't just a different manager now, he was a different man. Across the room, Luna caught his eye and gave a small nod. She didn't need to say anything. She saw him, and for the first time in a long time he saw himself too. We all make judgments, snap decisions. We size people up in an instant, by clothes, by accent, by posture. But sometimes the very person we dismiss is the one holding the key to a better version of ourselves. So, what about you? Have you ever been misjudged, or maybe you were the one who made the assumption? What did you learn? Comment below. Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear today. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter what they wear, drive, or earn. And subscribe, because next time, someone else in disguise will test the world around them, and what they uncover might just change everything. See you in the next story.